Good evening and welcome to Real Fellas Talk Sports. I'm your host for this evening. My name is Larry Abels, and I'm joined by two of the most knowledgeable sports experts in the universe. So let me introduce them. First, I'll introduce the dapper man from Indianapolis, Mr. David Burnett. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing great, Larry. By the way, in keeping with what you just said, I'm in the sports capital of Indiana, of the country, and perhaps the world. I just want to say.
He can't even get it out. Hey, David, thanks for joining us.
It's funny every week. We've been only doing this for 4 years, and every week it's funny. I don't know if it's, and I don't even know if it's intended to be funny, and yet it's funny.
And let me also introduce my longtime friend, 2 blocks away from the old neighborhood, went to high school with him, Charles Chuck Snowden. How you doing, Chuck?
Hey, Larry, I'm doing great. You guys know I love Wednesday, and I can't wait to chop it up. This will be our first week of chopping it up with not a whole lot of football to discuss, so it should be interesting.
All right. So with that said, let's get into it. Last weekend was NBA All-Star Weekend, and that's something that the NBA puts on as one of their big features during the year. So I'll start off with a little question. And Chuck, is it more about the game or the pomp and circumstance to you?
It's more about the pomp and circumstance. And in the old days, it should be kind of like it was a break for the All-Stars that come to a city, hang out for the weekend, relax, recharge, and fans would come and sign autographs and lobby, and it was cool. So it's really more about pomp and circumstance, in my opinion.
David, what's your view on it on that weekend?
I would say the NBA All-Star Weekend should just be looked at as pomp and circumstance. I agree. I agree with Chuck. A couple of weeks ago, the city went crazy over the Royal Rumble, WWE Royal Rumble. 60 or 70,000 people jammed Lucas Oil Stadium, and the wrestlers, which we now know officially, wrestling is preordained, it's orchestrated, it's a show. And maybe what the NBA needs to be doing is just to understand that it's a show. We get all upset about the way the All-Star game, whether the guys are competing. Well, they're making 30, 40, 50, 60. I know every time I say a million, Chuck's head is exploding. But it's a different deal. So, make it a party and make no apology for that. As a game, well, what it is. It's not going to be what it used to be when we grew up.
I'm just a little curious because you said the city. Now, a lot of people refer to San Francisco as a city, and that's actually what the All-Star game was. But somewhere or the other, it got back to Indianapolis. Very clever, Mr. Burnett. But
I'm always going to center things around the sports capital of the world because you learn things.
Of the world now. That's the world.
Yeah, the city now. But speaking of the format, there are a lot of fans that were really kind of upset with over the last few years with the lack of a game. There's a lot of people, present company included, would like to see somewhat of a game when we're here. So the NBA tried to do a little different tournament to make the game more competitive. Chuck, did you see any of the All-Star games?
In full disclosure, in all honesty, I didn't see a ton of it, but I saw enough of it. And I know they had the mini tournament and the OGs versus the young folks, etc. I don't know. I'm just not as excited about the All-Star Weekend as I used to be. And it's not because the guys aren't trying. The people who are putting this thing on are trying. Some of the players are trying, they come up, they show up. I just thought it was too much Kevin Hart, too much talking heads. Yeah.
But
maybe I'm getting too old for this. Maybe young people find it kind of cool to see all of the pomp and circumstance.
Not according to some of the feedback from the fans. They actually wanted to see more basketball. And David and I were talking about this prior to the show, and I was telling David the Kevin Hart and the Shaq and Ernie crew, they actually took up about 35 or 40 minutes between two of the games, which is longer than any of the individual games. So I don't know. David, what do you think about the NBA's at least attempt? I think the tournament was an attempt to get a little more competition. Were they successful in that? If they were successful in doing that for that short period of time, does more need to be done for those who want to see an actual game?
First of all, you're never going to see an actual game again. They're making too much money. Guys load manage all the time. They spend the week, 8 days of a break. If like LeBron James, he knew he was hurt. He should have just stepped out, but he got his 8 days, 9 days of rest. But he was slated to be part of the All-Star. I mean, look, for us to get all excited about if it was just an entertainment thing, pomp and circumstance, as we're calling it, then it would be fine. Bring it, for instance, create a specific NBA Hall of Fame. There's a basketball Hall of Fame that includes everybody, but there's never been an NBA Hall of Fame. Maybe the All-Star Weekend should be dedicated to the history of the NBA from 1950, or actually 1946, if you include the Basketball League, BBA, before the NBA. If we include all of that, and bring in all of the legendary players, let them sign autographs, let them do special events, make it something that's special. And then the game is just kind of topping on top of everything, because you can't expect guys to risk their careers and whatnot as a possible ruptured ACL or whatnot playing an All-Star game, because that's what's possible.
Hey, Lauren. Hey, Lauren, Kung Fu. Thanks for checking in on us today. Great comments.
Yeah. I have a little different expectation. I think if you're going to have it, you should at least give us the level of like a pickup game. We're not looking for game 7 of the finals, but They can put forth some effort. What happened this weekend, and Chuck, I was telling David this earlier, Wemby and his team actually played, well, the first 2 games were pretty competitive.
Right.
And I thought Wemby played very well, but the bad news was Wemby's team lost, and we didn't get to see him play anymore. And I think that's one of the players came. I think Draymond Green was saying, a lot of players put in a lot of time, and they're only out there for a short period of time. So if the NBA's goal was to have a more competitive game, I guess you got to let the players play a little more. But unless the players take it upon amongst themselves to play more, I don't know what the answer to that is.
It's just for us. It used to be back in the day. I was looking forward to this game because it wasn't maybe overexposed pro basketball. So if Magic was going to go up against Bird or play with Bird or with Isaiah in an All-Star game weekend, that was kind of intriguing to me. And of course, those guys of those ilk, they took that game kind of seriously. Maybe they didn't play 110%, but they damn near played 100%. And it was just kind of cool. It was really, really, really was cool. But now we watch so much and we see these guys play all the time. Mm-hmm. My curiosity of how Wemby is going to do against Joker is just not like it was. You know what I'm saying? And that might be on me, not on them.
Well, my thing is on them. I'd give you a stat. I think Wemby got 6 blocks. They haven't had 6 blocks in the last 4 All-Star games, okay? So, I mean, he was actually out there playing, and his team lost. I mean, that was the thing. They were actually playing for those that wanted to do that. The pomp and circumstance took, I don't know why Kevin Hart was there, and I don't have any problem with him, but, oh, my goodness, they actually, their little segment in between the games took 35 minutes, and none of those games, the tournament games, did that.
If it was funny, I'd be okay with it. But it wasn't even funny. I mean, it wasn't even funny. So
well, that's what a lot of people say. So, you think the league will keep this format, or do you think they'll try something different? David, what about you?
This format's gone. I mean, they've been playing around with the idea, you know, picking squads based on the allotment of so-called all-stars, and they get to pick. They tried that. Now they try this 4-team format. No, it's not gonna stay the same because it's junk anyway. And like I say, it should just be what it is, a celebration of NBA basketball, and let's not expect anything more. And make it interesting to the viewing public on TV, not just the city that it's housed in. And by the way, San Francisco, you know, I wish they had built a great stadium in Oakland, and kept the Golden State Warriors in Oakland.
Well, remember, it was San Francisco at first and moved on.
Well, it was, but it was San Francisco for a while.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of making the game interesting, and maybe this is an idea, I think they've talked about this, and maybe you guys have talked about it previously too, and that is maybe if we made this the American-born players versus the foreign-born players, and see how that would work. It would be interesting. I know David has brought up multiple times how, you know, the MVPs over the last few years have been these foreign-born guys. So maybe they set that up. I know this hockey thing is going on right now, and this whole Canada versus USA with the tariff issue and blah, blah, blah. They've actually been fighting. So so maybe that would get some intrigue to see how that, you know, Shea and Wemby and that crew would do against our guys. Maybe that's just an idea.
No, that's an idea people are talking about, but do you think that necessarily will make the players play a little harder?
Not necessarily.
Yeah, that's the hockey. They're kind of like playing for their countries, and that might.
That's what I'm trying to set up. I mean, I know it's not. Those guys will be from the international world.
Yeah,
that's what I was trying to set up something like
in
that.
In hockey, though, that you can throw punches
right.
And connect.
It's gonna be tough because they're trying to figure it out. Just like the football thing. You're talking about a joke. So it's I just think the weekend itself it was kind of cool to open it up, have the players accessible, and
that should be enough. I mean, I think we're overthinking this whole thing.
I do too.
I think they should. I could go back to when Michael and Magic played. They actually played against each other. People weren't worried about getting hurt. I can see football. I can see why you don't want to do that with football, because it's a great chance of multiple people getting hurt. Basketball generally is a freak injury. I mean, but somebody could get hurt, no doubt about it.
When Paul George broke his leg, and part of his leg was like that.
Horrible. It was horrible.
You know, in a.
No, I mean, there's certainly a chance, but I mean, I think football is a lot. I can see why people don't want to play that. And they do that at the end of the season in football, where they're really going to make it.
And yet, for years, they had those all-star games, and people played up until, you know.
But the money was different. It was a different monetary era.
Right. Good luck with that all-star game. And like the dunk contest. I mean, how cool was it back in the day when Dr. J or Michael Jordan or Vince Carter, and the next day we were all talking about it, going to the playground and trying those dunks.
So let's pivot to that. Let's pivot to that, Chuck. We got a G League player that's won his third time. Should a G League player have even been in it, even though he was pretty impressive?
A 5'10" G League player. And the answer is yes, in my opinion. Why not? I think Craig Hodges, the year that Craig Hodges defended his 3-point championship, he wasn't on the team at that time.
Yeah, he was defending champion.
Right.
One thing I'll say about McClung that I like about, he doesn't miss dunks, which is taken away from the dunk contest to me, because at one time, you know, I'm sounding like, oh man, you miss a dunk, you were penalized for it.
Well, he practices his dunks all the time. That's what he does. He practices dunks.
But he makes all of his. I mean, that's
and it it doesn't hurt that he has like a 45, 46-inch vertical.
Right.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, I can relate to that because that's what
I think a shorter guy has a real advantage in this if they can consistently dunk because they've got to get up there.
Yeah.
But I have to give him credit. He's put on some spectacular dunks.
His jumping over the car was way better than Blake
Griffin.
John Moran said he might consider getting into it next year. He said he was inspired by Klung.
McClung jumps higher than John Moran.
It's not just about the jumping on those dunks, though. They know that you got to. It's just
you still got to be up there. You got to be up there.
I mean, Spud Webb won the dunk contest one year.
But Spud Webb couldn't have dunked to the extent that Mac McClung dunked because he's too short and he didn't have the hops, the same level of hops. McClung is hopping about 45, 46 inches. I mean, you know, world record vertical. That's why he's able to dunk so easily.
But Spud had some hops too, and he was making some dunks. And again, it go back to a short guy when you get up there like that. Yeah.
When I see Spud Webb's head go over the rim, then I'll agree with you. Mac McClung's head went over the rim.
Oh, he's a little bigger too. I mean, yeah, he is a little bigger. But even when Spud won, I was looking at if a guy 6'6" did it, it might not look as impressive. You know?
Well, if the 6'6" guy put his shoulders on the rim, it would.
If the 6'6" guy's name was Dr. J or Michael Jordan, who was 6'6", it looked pretty spectacular.
I got an idea for something. Remember how we always have talked historically all the way back into the 50s.
No, I don't remember that.
Let me finish my point of touching the top of the backboard. Why don't we see who can touch the top of the backboard as part of a contest? Put $10,000 on top of the backboard.
I always thought that was made up.
No, it's not.
Well, I believe it. They used to say Connie Hawkins could touch the top of the backboard and leave change.
Well, I mean, when you think about it, the top of the backboard is 3 feet. It's at 13 feet. That's all it is. And if you're tall enough, or if you have enough hops, you can get there. I mean, it's not impossible. I think I'd love to see that.
But
you know,
David,
since it's kind of
David, we're all the old real fellas. We've been around this thing for a long time. I have never seen anyone touch the top of the backboard.
Okay, let me just tell you this. A couple of weeks ago, this is a Pacer game. A ball got stuck at the top of the backboard in between those things. Mm-hmm. And Obi Toppin, now he's 6'8", 6'9".
And
he jumped up and knocked it down.
Poked it out. Yeah, I've seen people do that too.
I mean, he was within 3 inches of the top of the backboard. He can touch the top of the backboard. Touching the top of the backboard has just been mythologized over the years. Certain guys can do it.
There's a certain degree of hyperbole with it, but I'm not really sure that would be that exciting a contest.
If you put money up there,
change up there, like Chuck said, that might do it.
If you put a block of $15,000, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, shoot, hell, I'll go back in time.
You might have to check that out.
Well, you know what? It's a lot of pomp and circumstances. We'll send that to the commissioner, Adam Silver, and see if he'll take that. Right. I'm more for getting the players to play a little harder. Okay. NBA trade deadline. You know, there were a number of trades during the lot of well-known players moved, like certainly Davis, Doncic, Butler, De'Aaron Fox. Do you think any of them will have any impact on at least teams improving their lot during the play or making the playoffs? They like a team like San Antonio, they're probably a little out of it, as is Golden State. Do you think by adding like Butler and Fox will maybe make one of those teams move up, at least get into the playoffs? Chuck, what do you think about that?
I think so. I think Jimmy Butler, I guess they're 3-1 with Jimmy Butler on Golden State's team. Yeah. In fact, I heard Jimmy Butler say they're going to win the championship, which I think is hyperbole.
Well, Draymond Green said that
I'm
Saturday.
sorry. Draymond Green said that now that we've got Jimmy Butler, we're going to win the championship. You're right. My fault. I don't think they have enough, Larry. I don't. They have played well since he's been there. But I think they will improve them a little bit, but not enough to catch those other cats. Hey, Robert, how you doing, man? Thanks for checking us out.
Yeah, I say hi to Sharice too. We missed you when you spoke up.
Okay, hey, Sharice. So I think that'll help them. I think obviously I believe that Luka, if they can get just any kind of play out of the middle, I think the Luka LeBron thing is fascinating on a lot of levels, given how well Reeves was playing, although that was a bad loss against Utah. But that's fascinating. I'm going to watch and monitor that situation to see how that goes. They play tonight, actually. What other trade was in there that I thought had some you mentioned the Kuzma to Milwaukee, maybe giving Milwaukee that third person. So maybe you think that would, maybe get Milwaukee out of the, the win the East completely. So I guess those are the trades that'll be interesting to watch. I'll tell you what, Miami, since their trade, they haven't looked good at all. So maybe those guys haven't played yet. I don't know. But that Miami thing is a mess right now.
Yeah, they who did they get? Wiggins and
somebody else,
I can't even remember who the other guy was.
From Golden State.
Yeah. David, you think any of the trades will have an impact?
The only trades that just leap out to me was Jimmy Butler and then Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
Both of them are going to help their individual teams. Jimmy Butler will help the Warriors, but he's not going to help them win anything. Luka is going to help the Lakers to a certain extent, but the Lakers needed a big man to replace AD, and they didn't get that. Yeah. I think the Lakers are going to be more respectable, but not win anything. The Warriors are going to be more respectable, but not win anything. But it helps, and it leads to conversation about the league. And the league is about, voices and clicks.
What about San Antonio and De'Aaron Fox? You think that'll help them perhaps make the playoffs, David?
At some point, eventually, De'Aaron Fox is a great player coming out of Sacramento. But Wemby is still developing. He's got to put on some more weight. San Antonio is a team on the come, but not this year.
Yeah, I think that's going to help them next year and the following year, Larry, versus this year. Even though they might sneak into the playoffs, but I think next year and the following year that's going to help them. I'll tell you what, though, Levine or whoever at Sacramento picked up in that trade, Sacramento's playing pretty good since Fox has gone to San Antonio. So maybe
they have Jake Levine and DeRozan, who were both in Chicago last year. It's funny their backcourt has moved to Sacramento.
And
Zach LaVine is always hurt.
Yeah,
you know how I feel about guys always hurt.
There was two things that happened in the NBA in the last week or since we met before that I found interesting. First, Dallas, one of those games last week, Dallas literally had six of their starters starters rotation from the first game of the year. All six were out. All six. And they still beat somebody. They beat Miami or somebody. And then Ben Simmons was picked up by the Clippers off of waivers, and he actually played pretty good for the Clippers. He had 12 points and 7 assists and 8 rebounds. That sounds like a pretty good – I haven't seen numbers like that from him in a long time.
What's really good for him, they have a lot of good players on that team, and he really doesn't have to do that much. So he might actually be able to sneak in there and contribute a little bit.
Well,
can he shoot free throws?
If he could do that every game, 12, 8, and 7.
But can he shoot free throws?
I know.
He's not going to be in there at the end of the game.
Can he make layups?
Well, that's all he can make is a layup.
Yeah.
Anyway, I saw those numbers.
All he can make is layups.
That's all he can make is layups, right?
I'm just not a Ben Simmons guy.
I know. He's got to show me. He's got to have a couple of games.
But on that team, they have a lot of good players on that team, and he's not going to play that much. I mean, all he's going to do is come.
He doesn't want to.
But look, I mean, they got Kawhi, they got Harden. one of the best players on their team is Norman
Wow.
Powell. A lot of people thought he should have made the
All-Star.
All-Star team. So all he has to do is come in and it's like 3 guards that are way better than him, and all he's got to do is come in and do a little bit.
Well, they need that because, you know, when you think about it, Harden sometimes is out. Kawhi is always out. Ben Simmons is always out. So, okay, they got 3 guys that are going to be on the bench at some point.
Well, the other 2 you named actually play well when they're there. Ben Simmons is a question mark. But I'm saying,
there.
Well, I mean, they play well when they play.
You know, Harden's been there mostly this year, and Kawhi, after he recovered, has been there. You know,
he'll be hurt soon.
And neither one of them are overweight, David. Just wanted to point that out to you.
You know, that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, I know. Any teams this year have been surprising, either in a positive or negative way? Chuck, I'll start with you.
So Cleveland and Detroit. I mean, look, Cleveland's 44-10. Come on, man. Did we think at the beginning of the year they'd have the tie for the best record in basketball? I don't
think anybody saw that coming.
I don't think anyone saw it to that extent. So I think that's a surprise. And Detroit to be here in February, for them to be 3 games maybe over 500. So the guy that they fired, the head coach Bickerstaff, they fired from Cleveland. He took over the Pistons. The Pistons won 14 games last year.
Right.
And they're already, 28 and 25, something like that. So he's already doubled the win total. So those are 2 teams that surprised me in the East. And in the West, it's Memphis and Houston. What a bounce back from Memphis. I think they're in 2nd place in the West. And Houston is a team that's coming, a team that you got to keep an eye on as well. So those are the 2 that have been surprises to me.
David, what about you?
I'm going to echo Chuck. Cleveland, it's a surprise. They're not going to win the championship, I don't think, but in theory, they're set up to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. If they don't get to the Eastern Conference Finals, it'll be a disappointment, even though this is a surprising year. And then the Memphis Grizzlies, they got some talent. And when Zach Edey understands how to better play the game, they're going to be hard to beat.
Yeah, Cleveland was getting better and better every year. I'm kind of surprised that they fired their coach last year. I mean,
and he won 48 games as a coach last year for Cleveland. 48.
And they lost to the Celtics. I mean, the team that won the championship.
In the second round, they got to the 2nd round. Hey, fellas.
How you doing?
Hey, fellas.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you guys. A big surprise to me, and it was a negative surprise out of Philadelphia 76ers.
If you went back around, I was going to talk about that.
Let's go back around. Talk about that.
So on the disappointing side, Philly is at the top of the list. They're in 11th place. Embiid, come on, man. And David's going to love this. They went out and gave Embiid a little bit more money, but they went and signed Paul George. And I mean, neither one of them have really been to a lot of money, and neither one of them have been available all year. And so as a result, it's disappointing. It really is disappointing what's going on in Philly to me. And Maxi's playing his butt off, but he, can't carry that team. So that's on the East. And then in the West, Phoenix, Minnesota and Phoenix have been a little bit disappointing, especially Phoenix. Phoenix, again, the Bradley Beal thing hasn't worked out. I guess Booker's played okay, but him and KD, they haven't been able to get Phoenix above 11th either. And then Minnesota, who last year was a really good team, they trade Cat.
They need Cat.
That's haunting them.
It's
yeah.
So those 2 in the West, Philly in the East, and then Minnesota and Phoenix in the West.
So let's give a shout out to Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Bernard.
Joe Bernard, what's up?
Hey, Joseph. Boston and OKC, huh?
I'm not sure. Maybe you didn't hear the question. We're talking about teams that were surprises.
Those weren't surprises.
Yeah.
Well, disappointing to me. I'm agreeing with Chuck.
The same thing.
Thunder in the
Okay, we're talking about teams that were surprises this year or disappointments. I don't know.
Disappointing is Philadelphia. They're pathetic. And, any team that depends on Paul George is fooling themselves. And Joel Embiid is an injury waiting to happen. And Phoenix, you're depending on players who haven't done anything anyway, haven't won anything, except just a couple. So Kevin Durant can't carry the whole Phoenix team. Can't do it.
So I think
they're in salary cap trouble because they have spent so much money. And a lot of times you need guys that can come out and play. And they can't even get mid-level people on their team.
Well, that's fascinating what's going on in the league to see if teams like OKC, Houston, now with San Antonio, with Wemby building that team up through the draft and young players and so forth, versus it used to be get to three, a big three, and a big three will help you lead you to. I don't know if that's because if you get three, you can't afford other people.
Well, especially if they're those super max players getting those super max salaries. 100%. Chuck, you hit on something. I've noticed in the last couple of years, there are a lot of teams with a lot of players. OKC's a good example. Cleveland's a good example. Even Davis' team in Indianapolis is a good example. You have to have about 8 players that can play, and they're no longer just limited to standing in the corner shooting threes. They're expected to play both ends of the court. And when you have enough guys to put in your rotation that can do that, and it's really kind of patterned after the Celtics. I mean, when you really look at the Celtics, they're a team like that. They got guys that can switch off on people and play multiple positions. No weak person really on defense, that you have to hide, and they all can hit open shots if you leave them open. So
well, you mentioned my Pacers. They've got 10 guys in the rotation that can play.
And they can all do
interchangeable parts.
Yeah.
And they're a pretty damn good team. The whole, whether they are committed to winning like I'd like to see them, I'm not that sure, but they're an impressive team. And you got to have a team.
And the interesting part about that is the 2 guys a few weeks ago that you mentioned that you liked the most was Nembhard and the kid from CJ, the kid from Notre Dame, the guard off the bench from Notre Dame, right?
TJ McCollum. TJ.
The white guard that comes off the bench for you guys.
TJ.
TJ. Yeah. So those are the 2 guys that you liked a lot, David. TJ.
I love TJ because he knows how to hit the mid-range shot and he knows how to get to the hoop. As being 6'3", he can get to the hoop as well as anybody.
Everyone on that team can contribute. David, we were talking about players we liked, and who we forgot to mention was Siakam. I was saying about Turner. You were saying
Siakam is
we forgot to mention him.
He's money.
Hey, what's up, Greg? Thanks for checking us out.
How you doing, Greg?
Greg Finner Senior. He got that senior up there this week, don't he, Larry?
Okay. Before we leave the NBA, because we're about to pivot from there to another level of basketball, if you had to name your 5 first-team All-NBA players, and remember they're positionless now,
right?
Who would those players be? David, we'll start with you.
Giannis, Jokic, SGA, Wemby, and Tatum.
Not bad. Chuck, who do you have?
I agree with 3 of those, Shea, Giannis, and Joker. But then I have to go to the 2 warhorses, LeBron and Steph. I would add them. And the 2 that David mentioned, not bad at all, but I have to go with the two warhorses.
I'm close to David. And I would take Giannis, Joker, Shea. Who else did you say?
I said Wemby and Tatum.
Yeah, Tatum. And I would probably take, I would still like Anthony Edwards or Brunson for New York. I'm not sure. But I like, it's really difficult. It's really difficult. And I don't think there are really any wrong answers with that, But it's a lot of good, the talent seems to be sort of spread out, and it's very hard to pick. When you even think about who wasn't at the All-Star game this year due to injury or other thing, there are a lot of great players that didn't even, like Embiid or Giannis, they weren't even there,
Embiid, yeah.
And Anthony Edwards, I don't know, man. Everybody talks about Anthony Edwards. I don't know, man.
Anthony Edwards is the pre-championship Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, we always talk about Michael Jordan winning 6 championships and going to the finals and winning 6 times. Well, 8 years leading up to it, he didn't win anything.
Yeah, but he was still
he was a great player, but he had no championships for 8 seasons.
Championships are by and large a team accomplishment. I mean, he had to get to the players around him. Had to.
Well, I hear what you're saying.
Like Scottie Pippen, he's the one that really got a lot better.
I hear what you're saying, but we make Jordan into the GOAT, or arguably the GOAT, because of the 6 championships, and we sit up there and mostly credit the 6 championships to Michael Jordan as opposed to any other players on the team. I hear what you're saying about a team, because you're right, but we weigh that based on what they've done, but we ignore the fact that leading up to Michael Jordan becoming the GOAT, he didn't win anything.
I think he was the best player since he got into the league. And I was a big Magic Johnson fan, and he had titles. But when I saw Michael Jordan,
he wasn't a winner. He wasn't a winner. His team wasn't a winner. No, he wasn't a winner.
Well, my statement was, I think he was the best player in the league.
Wilt Chamberlain's the best player of all time, and he only has 2 championships. And he's not
so they don't necessarily have to match up.
Bill Russell has 11 championships. He's the all-time winner, but he's not one of the greatest players. See, so I mean,
you're making my argument. You're making my argument.
No, I'm making my argument.
Hold on, Larry. So you're saying if you flip it and you put Russell on Philly's team and Chamberlain?
No, I think. Well, I think if you make that argument, I think if you put Chamberlain on Boston's team, they still win those championships.
Maybe.
I don't think
Wilt Chamberlain is in my mind the greatest player to play in the NBA. That's my opinion.
In the history of the NBA.
In the history, I didn't stutter. Okay. In the history of the NBA, yes, he had such an impact on the game.
And the
lane changed because of Wilt Chamberlain.
My only statement was I thought Michael Jordan was the best player when he.
He certainly had talent. He certainly was one of the most talented.
I was a big Magic Johnson fan and then I heard Magic Johnson really say it. Everybody talks about me and Larry, but it's really Michael. And I had to.
He didn't say Larry. You didn't say that till the '92 Olympics.
No, he said that early. He said that early in the season. No. Well before then. He said that in the '80s. He said that well before then.
No, I heard him say when they had that famous game in the Olympics. That scrimmage when he said, "You know what? It's now Michael's league."
But he didn't say that. He just said everybody's talking about us. He said we got to watch this guy. I even heard Michael Cooper say this guy is crazy. Same way people are kind of talking about Wemby, how he's going to be so great. They were talking about Michael like that.
Yeah, but he's not there yet. That's what I'm saying. I agree with that. I agree with what David just said. In the '80s, Michael Jordan didn't beat none of them teams. He didn't beat none of them. And those teams were loaded. He didn't beat none of them.
I'm not arguing that he didn't beat them. I just said I thought he was the best player.
That's how we measure greatness. It's like Dominique Wilkins. You even bring this up to me all the time. I assume you'd say Dominique Wilkins is one of, if not in the top 10 greatest players of all time.
Tremendous talent.
See what I'm saying?
Talent.
That's how they measure that.
Only Michael Jordan. Dominique Wilkins was really good. I really thought Michael was the best player before he won the championship. I thought he was the best player.
I don't think anybody would argue with that.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
But he wasn't a winner. And I just bring up Wilt Chamberlain as a counterpoint. Wilt technically wasn't a winner, even though he had two championships and went to the finals 6 times. He didn't win to the extent that people wanted him to win, being such a dominant player. That's all I'm saying.
LeBron, 9 in a 10-year period, went to NBA finals, and he won 4 of them. In one period, he went 8 straight NBA finals. And if you look at the lineups of the teams he took to those finals, no, that was
all I can say is I would love to have seen
anybody to the finals. He was the best player in the league too.
I would love to have seen.
He was the best player in the league.
I would love to have seen Wilt Chamberlain at his best, let's see, 1963, against any player today. Any player. Any.
I mean, no, it's hard to compare people across eras, I'll say that. But, I think to be considered the best player, you had to be the best, at least at some point during your career. Wilt certainly was that at one time.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Bill Russell's calling me from heaven. What'd you say, Bill? Show David.
Bill Russell has been quoted multiple times as saying Wilt Chamberlain was better than he was.
And then he would wink.
Well, if you say the greatest winner, if you say the greatest winner, Bill Russell.
Bill Russell's the greatest winner.
Yeah, and you got to say Casey Jones and Sam Jones are right there with him. They won all the
time. Sam Jones is right behind him with nine championships.
Yeah, they were there most of that time. Okay, now once again we will pivot. Let's talk about the NCAA women. During the past, since our last show, we've had great matchups. 6 of the top 7 teams have faced off each other, starting with UCLA and USC,
Big Ten,
UConn and South Carolina, and Texas and LSU. Did you guys get a chance to check out any of those games? Chuck, I'll start with you.
I saw all 3.
I know you will see some of them watching some of the same time I was watching.
Right. I find the ladies' game. Thank you, Caitlin Clark and others. I'm sorry, but I'm just so excited about the ladies' game. And I knew coming into this season, because this talent has been spread out, that it was going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And so the game, the UCLA game, was Juju versus the number 1 team in the nation, UCLA. It's a crosstown rival. Of course, it's a great Big Ten game. And so it was amazing. Juju had 38 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, and get this, she's a guard. She had 8 blocked shots. 8. It was a performance. It was a virtuoso performance. And she had 25 at the half. So yes, and it wasn't that UCLA is bad. Like I said, they're the number 1 team undefeated, and it was pretty cool. It came on so late, but I stayed up and watched.
David, any thoughts on that game?
It's a crosstown rival. Both of them are now in the Big Ten. Yay, Big Ten. Hey. Juju is a great player. And the women's game, women's college basketball has been on fire for quite a few years now.
I agree.
And the WNBA needs to follow the path of women's college basketball.
They will.
I hope so, because they're sold out games in a lot of places in women's college basketball, and a lot of really good players. So I think USC winning against UCLA will probably fight back and win and avenge that loss, is what I think. And like UConn smashing South Carolina, that means nothing.
Well, we'll get to that in a second.
Oh no, we'll talk about
that. UCLA USC game was very good. The first quarter, USC jumped off to about a 6-point lead at the end of the first quarter. UCLA battered them in the second and third quarter.
They went inside the big girl.
It had a double-digit lead on them, and then in the fourth quarter, they were outscored. USC outscored UCLA 24-8. I mean, they clamped down on the defense, but it was money's worth. It really seemed like a playoff game, if you will. Very good. And you're right, Chuck. Juju had it going the whole game.
Oh my God!
She scored more than half their points, and she was doing everything.
Inside, outside. Oh, it was a beautiful thing to watch.
So now we're going to move to the second game. David started to talk about that, UConn and South Carolina, which happened on Sunday.
In South Carolina.
This is when we're addressing you, Phyllis.
Yeah, Phyllis is from Columbia, so.
Yeah.
In South Carolina.
Never seen anything like it. Never saw it.
But it's meaningless, because South Carolina can turn around and beat UConn. Because, I think the women's game is there's a lot of parity. There's a lot of parity, because UConn got crushed by Notre Dame. See, even though we're highlighting several games, we're not highlighting where Notre Dame is. Notre Dame is ranked number 1. Yes. And they crushed UConn. Crushed. UConn.
Yeah, we can get to them, but I was really pointing out we had great matchups in the
No,
last.
well, we did.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, before we, dismiss South Carolina, UConn crushed them, but that happens in basketball. Sometimes all your shots don't hit.
David, you've never
sometimes that
seen
happens.
that girls' team Don Staley's team lose by 30 at home.
She's been coaching at South Carolina for more than a decade. She's had some losses. Sometimes it happens.
But they had, to Chuck's point, they had 71 straight victories.
71 straight.
They were ice cold. It happens. And if they played 10 times, I think South Carolina would win 6.
Well,
I really believe
I
that.
think we know that Sunday's game was somewhat of an anomaly. But Chuck, what did you take away from that game?
Again, I was absolutely floored. And by the way, it's not the only time South Carolina has lost this year. I think they too lost to UCLA earlier in the year. South Carolina did.
South Carolina's lost 3 games. Matter of fact, they lost
to Texas.
Right. I was going to bring that up when we talk about Texas coming up next.
So it's not the first. I don't think
they've lost 3 games.
But 3 games is fine. Losing 3 games is fine.
I know, but it's good for basketball that this stuff is spread out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a parity.
Well, the reason I'm bringing this up is because we've had all these contests playing each other.
But back to that game specifically, we have a lady out of Washington, D.C. that everybody knows about, and she was a star in high school named Azzy Fudd. But Azzy went to Connecticut and had been hurt off and on for a couple of years. Well, she was fully healthy the other night, and she, too, put on a show, had 28 points. She was making threes like crazy. I think she had 18 points in the third quarter. And it was good to see Azzy healthy, playing well again. Paige Becker is still on that team. They got a young forward on that team that's really good. UConn got a good bunch too this year. So
they have arguably the greatest women's basketball coach of all time.
Oh, no doubt about that. Right.
Well,
Gino Auriemma is without peer.
No doubt.
But Chuck, you're making a real good point about Fudd and Becker. They have played very few games together.
100%.
Because both of them have been injured a lot. And I know Fudd got hurt when she was here at St. John's her senior year and had a knee operation. And I think she's had 2 more injuries at Connecticut, where you almost kind of forgot about her. But they had both of them on their game Sunday.
And they had a freshman on that team too named Sarah Strong. She was tough too. She's had a good year for them as well.
Well, all I know is if UConn has to play against Notre Dame again, they're gonna get their ass kicked again. I mean that's all I'm saying. I mean the parity in women's basketball. I'm not disappointed or shocked that UConn won by almost 30 points.
Yes,
even though it was in South.
No, I'm not.
No, I'm not. First of all,
nobody beat South Carolina like that.
No, it happens in basketball. It happens.
30?
Yes, 30.
Matter of fact, I mean, again, after 71 straight home victories, that was kind of a shock the way they lost. The fact that UConn could beat them, okay, UConn's a good team, but the way they lost was crazy. Chuck, they were up, I think at halftime, UConn was up by 22 points, and Fudd had only really had like 5 points at halftime. She got like 23 in the second half.
The third quarter, she was smoking.
Yeah, hit about 6 threes in a row.
Yeah. It was I watched that one too.
So let's look at the last matchup between top teams, LSU and Texas. Now, as we were speaking earlier, Texas had defeated South Carolina on Super Bowl Sunday. So they're actually facing the top teams. I think they moved up to number 2 in the polls now, too. Yeah, Chuck, what do you think about that game?
It was another good game. LSU, of course, what's the coach of LSU? She had her bright jacket on.
Markey.
Oh, my gosh. She had this crazy jacket on. But they got a girl on that team named Booker. I think her name is Booker, that plays for Texas. Texas has a really, really good team. Like I said, they beat South Carolina, and they beat LSU all within a week.
Yeah.
That is unheard of. I'm sorry, guys. That ain't something that happens every day. And so Texas has to be, and like you say, this week Notre Dame is 1 and Texas is 2, and they got to be. You got to watch them. You got to watch that team.
Yeah, and I guess, they got Booker and LSU has Floyd Johnson,
Yeah,
and
the
they
rapper.
both got about 16 points,
Yeah.
and it was a very competitive game. It was what I was looking for USC in Connecticut and didn't get.
No. I know, because the game was close. It was a
Yeah.
battle. Yeah.
Yeah, so the current standings now, Notre Dame is number 1. Texas has moved up to number 2. Interestingly enough, UCLA is number 3, even though they lost to number 4 USC. But
Well, that's what happens.
it just kind of seems illogical when you look at those two teams when they get to head-to-head. But that's UCLA's only loss so far this year.
Well,
UConn,
there you go.
The point is, there's 6 or 7 on that list this week, Larry. And I don't think we ever said this in February, that there are 6 or 7 teams that could win the national championship.
yeah, none of these teams have lost more than 3 games. That's
They all play each other.
Right. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of it. They're playing each other out of conference when necessary. I got it. Even though South Carolina took a couple of L's, they played. Went to Texas and played Texas, and then UConn goes down there and play. So I'm looking for Notre Dame to play a couple more too. And yeah, Notre Dame has already beaten Connecticut. So these teams are playing.
2.5 weeks ago, I saw Iowa beat USC. And at the time, USC hadn't lost or had 1 loss or something like that. And Iowa beat them.
So let's move over to the men for a few minutes. We have, strangely enough, historically in football, you have the Iron Bowl with Alabama and Auburn. I can't remember a time when either one of them was ranked number 1 or 2 in basketball, and that was the case. So, David, tell me what's happening. Wait a minute. Historically, the SEC is a football conference, and they have all these teams in the top 25, more than the Big Ten. And the Big Ten had all the teams in the top 5 in football. If things just flipped, what's going on here?
I'm not going to get excited about the SEC in basketball. I mean, when's the last time an SEC team? Florida? Is that it?
And they're one of the highly ranked teams too.
Well, I mean, the SEC is a power conference. They got a lot of money. They're a couple of $1 million behind the Big Ten. So the SEC is supposed to have great teams, and in this era of NIL, I'm not surprised.
David's right about this. I think Alabama might have been in the Final Four last year. I think, but
yeah, they've had some good teams sometimes.
Historically, and David's mentioning that you're mentioning that Florida team, but that was back in
the mid 2000s.
Yeah,
we've had Kentucky as a perennial blue blood.
I keep forgetting they're an SEC team. You're right.
Well, Kentucky has a great history.
Yeah.
So they represent the SEC in basketball.
Eagles. Yeah.
So Chuck, have they flipped? I mean, am I seeing this wrong? Where looks like the Big Ten is taking over football and the SEC is running basketball now?
It does look that way, doesn't it? I think
Big East is going to win the championship.
I think what's happening is they're taking all that football money, that excess football money in the SEC over like it's been a 10-year plan, and they're dumping some of that into basketball, building the wonderful facilities, on-campus facilities, building those nice dorms and weight rooms, and they pay down there. So I'm not that surprised they're in the mix.
So let me ask you guys something. Right now, they're predicting that Big Ten might get up to 10 teams into the tournament. They're looking at the SEC, maybe 11 teams in the tournament. How does that bode well for the other power conferences when you figure it's going to be 29 other conferences that are getting automatic bids? How many teams from the ACC, Big Ten, or Big East, not Big Ten, Big 12 or Big East? What's the maximum number?
We have to cover that on one of our shows coming up. Is what is happening to the ACC in general?
Everybody caught up.
I mean, what's the max number you think any of those conferences can get?
5.
What about you, Chuck?
I think they're going to get. I think you're about right. I think they're going to get 10 from both conferences. Both those conferences.
Well, I just named 3. We got 3 conferences: the ACC, the Big 12, and the Big East.
Oh, the ACC probably won't have more than Duke, Clemson, maybe Wake Forest. Maybe that's
Didn't the ACC only get like 4 teams in last season?
That might have been a number because I've been hearing people arguing in the ACC when they're talking about the Big Ten and SEC getting so many. They said they're going to be hard pressed to get much more than that.
North Carolina's going to have a hard time making the tournament. That's where we are.
What about the Big East?
Well, Big East shouldn't be laughed at all.
No, they're going to get about 6.
They dominate.
St. John's, UConn, Marquette, Creighton, Xavier, and maybe Villanova.
Yeah, it's hard to keep the defending champ out, right?
They got a argumentative, crazy ass coach.
Oh, he is. Both those brothers, both the Hurley brothers are out of control. The one Hurley brother at Arizona State, he pulled his team off the court.
Oh, he did. He pulled a Bob Knight, huh?
Yeah.
So according to my math, well, I guess they have 68 teams, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of teams.
Okay,
so they got a lot of openings.
So it's going to be 18 slots available.
They ought to bring it up to 96 teams.
After the 11 from the SEC, 10 from the Big Ten, and 29 others that will get automatic bids. It's only going to be 18 slots left open after that, roughly 18 slots. So I don't know. What conference is Houston in?
They are in
Big
12. I think they're in the Big 12.
Okay, I guess some of them mixed up.
They're going to be there too.
Yeah,
and he does it with 3 and 4 stars. He don't get 5-star players. He just gets guys who are dogs.
Indiana should have kept Kelvin Sampson.
Don't even get me started.
They treated him badly.
Well, look, that's all the time we have for today. So, first of all, we want to thank all of our people that view. We appreciate you guys tuning in every week and your comments. Can't stress, thank you very much for supporting us. And now we'll move to our closing comments. Chuck, do you have one?
I do. Since the theme, or we touched on the theme, and I've fallen in love with it anyway, is ladies basketball. I want to talk about a specific lady in the last couple of weeks she's had. Her name is Michaela Blakes, and you're going to remember that name. Michaela plays at Vanderbilt. She's a freshman. So the other night, Vanderbilt beat Auburn. She had 55 points. She was 24 for 25 from the free throw line, and the only one she missed was the last one. Now, previous this year against Florida, she had 50. And then she also had a 53-point game this year. And Vanderbilt's ladies are doing well in the SEC. That's a name you guys want to remember. Michaela Blakes. She's a freshman, and she's already had 3 50-plus games.
You're ready for the WNBA, huh?
I love the ladies' game right now.
Yeah, she just had a 53-point game like last week or something. She had 50 against Florida, and she had 50 against Tennessee, and she had 50 against Auburn. And David said something earlier. The 2 guards from Notre Dame, Hidalgo and the other lady, they're unbelievable. And they're only like 5'7", 5'9", and they are unbelievable. So the ladies' game is just really exciting. I encourage our viewing audience to check it out. David.
I'm just going to give a shout out, not a full closing comment, but a shout out for the upcoming NFL Combine for the umpteenth year in Indianapolis coming up. The future of the NFL is always here. I just wanted to remind folks to keep an eye on that.
And the Big Ten championship, basketball championships in Indianapolis too.
We have that every year.
As well as the Combine, right?
The Combine, Big Ten championship, the NCAA finals, we have it all here. We even have a big race called the Indianapolis 500.
Heard of it. I've heard of it.
You've heard of it? Yeah.
I've heard of it.
Okay. Well, my closing comments are going to be kind of, it's going to be a plea to sports fans everywhere. What's disturbing to me, the last 2 Super Bowl parades, we've had people that bought guns and actually used them on people trying to celebrate. Look, I mean, I know fans is short for fanatic, but come on, y'all. Let's not tear the city up. Let's learn to, these are things that everybody should enjoy. Championships don't come along that frequently. When you look at it, when you got leagues with 30 teams, your odds of seeing it is once every 30 years. Certainly there's some teams that win it a few times, but come on. Let's get away from the nonsense. And hopefully going forward, spread the word. Let's just go celebrate and let's not be idiots.
Amen. Well said, Larry. Well said.
Okay, well, thank everyone again for tuning in. We appreciate all of the comments, and we'll see you next week. Who's hosting next week?
I am.
Okay, David Burnett from the great city in Indianapolis. And everyone, we'll see you later. Take care, everybody.
Good.